A warm welcome to Energy Frontiers, proudly supported by the African Energy Chamber, the continent's leading industry advocacy organization, headquartered in Johannesburg, South Africa. I am Justina Okechukwu, and let's get started with some of the biggest energy news around the continent. U.S. energy giant Chevron has signed contracts to explore 2 new ultra-deepwater oil blocks in offshore Angola. The blocks 49 and 50, located in the lower Congo Basin, mark Chevron's first operated assets outside the existing holdings and is seen as a positive sign for Angola's oil and gas industry. Italian oil and gas company ENI says it has plans to sell a portion of its exploration rights in Ivory Coast. The deal, which is potentially valued at €1 billion, could see ENI divest up to 30% of its exploration operations and has attracted interest from Asian energy companies. Gazprom PJSC, a Russian-owned energy corporation, has signed an agreement with the African Energy Chamber to be a sponsor at the upcoming African Energy Week due November 4 to 8 in Cape Town, South Africa. Gazprom will also be hosting a Russia-Africa Partnership Roundtable at the summit on how private and public players can strengthen energy ties. The Nigerian National Petroleum Corporation, together with Total Energies, has announced a $550 million final investment decision on the Ubeta gas development project. Ubeta is the latest in a series of projects developed by Total Energies in Nigeria. The Republic of Ghana has launched West Africa's largest floating solar PV system to reduce its reliance on fossil fuels. The 5-megawatt facility located at the Biu Reservoir combines solar and hydro resources to create a hybrid plant which will also support Ghana's national grid. The governing board of the United Nations Sustainable Energy for All has approved a reappointment of Damilola Ogunbiyi to a second 5-year term as the Chief Executive Officer of the international organization based in Vienna. And that's the summary of your energy news headlines. When Energy Frontiers return, stakeholders are looking to unlock universal green energy access and boost domestic private sector support for renewable energy in Nigeria. Stay with us. Welcome back to the program. The United Nations Sustainable Energy for All recently hosted a high-level delegation from the Rockefeller Foundation and Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet in Nigeria. The visit was focused on renewable energy projects and engagement with key stakeholders and partners to address how Nigeria can fast-track its energy transition to clean and affordable energy while closing the energy access gap. Dr. Wale Aboyade is the interim regional head for Africa at Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet, and I caught up with him to brief me on the outcome of the high-level meetings and visits to project sites across Nigeria.
Many people may not know it, but Nigeria is probably the most exciting market for decentralized renewable energy in the world today. A lot of it being driven by private sector participants, many of them Nigerians like you and I, who invest their time, their sweat, their energy in activities that help to extend clean energy to people in rural areas and underserved areas who do not have access to energy. So we were able to see, and Dr. Radsha was able to see for the first time exactly what that looks like, especially at the site, interconnected mini grid site we went to go and see just in Nasarawa State. It was a 350 kilowatt site that's currently powering 1,600 homes and businesses, and they expect to expand it to another 2,000 or so homes and businesses over the next months and years. That site really showed the impact that, collaboration and alliance could do, because again, it was the private sector coming together with donors and funders like ourselves, of course, with the grant from the Rockefeller Foundation, but also through partners like SC for All and the World Bank, all came together to support those sort of initiatives. So it shows you what partnerships can do. It also shows the impact of this on livelihoods of people, of the average Nigerian. Many of them in that community were receiving power, constant power, for the first time in over 10 years. And you could tell that this was something that they're really excited about. They're able to run their businesses. They're able to read at night. They're able to move around in safety because of street lights that work. All of these things they're able to do because of power that has been made available through a collaboration between the private sector and the public sector to deliver services to the people of Nigeria. So that was really interesting to see. My second takeaway was the excitement to do more. The government recognizes that this is a path. They need to work with the private sector. We cannot gone are the days where we can depend on government to provide electricity for everyone. And they've seen that it can work. They've tested it through those kind of sites that we visited, that this can work. A private sector can be a partner along with other development partners. So they're eager to roll it out. They're eager to scale. And this is also the second part of the visit, where we were having discussions with different government stakeholders on how do we get to the next stage? How do we get this to reach the remaining 80 million Nigerians who still do not have access to reliable power today? And I'm excited to say that we received the support and the backing of all government stakeholders that we met with, but also the private sector stakeholders, including the finance and those in the finance sector who we hope will be coming to invest in this thing. That it was a really exciting visit, and it bodes well for the future.
Right. Thank you so much for that. Now, you spoke well about what you're doing in terms of partnerships, and then how you are closing that gap in terms of bridging the gap for energy access. And we already know that that's one key issue that is that we are facing in Nigeria at the moment when we come to electricity. Now, tell me more about what your organization and other partners are doing to accelerate this progress towards achieving universal energy access, where we have this project supporting mini grid projects and all of that across Nigeria, not just in faraway places, but places like Lagos and, other sites, other places in Lagos.
Thank you, Justina. That's a really good question. So the Global Energy Alliance for People and Planet was set up by mostly philanthropic organizations led by the Rockefeller Foundation, but we also had as incubation partners the Earth Fund as well as the IKEA Foundation. All came together to say, let us try and pool philanthropic capital from these different organizations to help accelerate the journey towards universal energy access. But we recognized that there were other existing partners that have been trying to do the same for a while. Most notably is the government itself, who has been trying to carry this load on their own for a long time. But you also have development finance partners like the World Bank, the Africa Development Bank, and many other international financial institutions. They have been also active in this space, but each of these institutions have particular mandates and boundaries through which they work that sometimes constrains them. And the reason why our founders thought that it made sense to create an organization like us is that we can be flexible enough to help fill some of this gap in between many of these partners who have been, doing their best, but it simply wasn't enough. An example of what we're set up to do, for example, is to be able to provide what we call catalytic capital to kickstart projects that traditional commercial and development institutions may not be able to invest in because of their risk appetite. These organizations were set up with a certain level of risk. As you can understand, they have depositors' money with them. They cannot just put that money down into something that might be risky, because that means that they cannot get it back. And if they cannot get it back, the people who put their money there will not get it back. And that's you and me. So they're understandably risky because they understand, because mini-grid sector in particular is so relatively new. And that's why we were able to come in with catalytic finance to seed some of these pilot projects and invest in them early to be able to show that they can work, they're commercially viable. And once we are able to prove that, we can then crowd in the more risky capital that is out there.
Moving on, Africa urgently needs clean cooking solutions that requires huge funding. But thanks to global support such as the International Energy Agency and other partners who committed some $2.2 billion to the new initiative at the first Clean Cooking Summit held recently in Paris. But that was just a curtain raiser, so I sat down with engineer Madrin Maina, Director for Africa at Systema Bio, to find out how the continent can bridge the huge funding gap.
The $2.2 billion was very good and welcome news to the players in the clean cooking sector, and especially because of the benefits the end users would have across the continent of Africa. It's quite a notable and significant amount that will have a great impact, but this is only based on how the funds can be properly allocated and utilized in order to support the range of interventions. And this includes technology development, could be research or improvement on existing technology, distribution network. How are we going to reach all the households that need this intervention across Africa? Subsidies that may be needed as well to drive affordability, and most importantly as well is the public awareness campaign. To take up new technologies, a lot of awareness creation is required. For this amount, the 2.2 billion, it also requires a very well thought out definition of the scope of the problem. A lot of the households in Africa, they are currently transitioning from using charcoal, wood fuel, or biomass towards clean cooking solutions like biogas, electricity, or liquid stove. And this is the area where I mentioned a lot of investment is required in the research, infrastructure development, technology, and behavior change as well.
Now, what key issues should African countries address to attract more financing for clean cooking initiatives?
Getting this funding as the continent of Africa, as I mentioned, is quite significant. It will have a big impact even as we drive towards the $4 billion. But are we prepared? What structures do we have in place to get 100% full benefit of this impact? First, we need to work on policy and regulatory frameworks for the clean cooking sector. We have the framework, whether it's in standards or in quality or even in the finance market. We do not have mature and well-developed policy and regulatory framework, and we need to have that in place to give investors confidence in investing in this new technology, and also for the finance markets to think about how can we approach subsidies or even financing of clean cooking solutions. I mentioned awareness campaign in the previous process, awareness and educating the population about the benefits of clean cooking. And it's not just the health benefits because it's a clean cooking fuel, but there are also environmental risks that are attached to using non-renewable sources of energy and non-clean cooking energy sources with the tradition of cooking. And this will also foster demand. So that's now the people that will drive the uptake by demanding more from the players in the clean cooking sector. It's still a young sector, really, that requires a lot of research, market development. How do we create proper distribution channels, supply chains, financing mechanisms, and how can all these be adapted to local context? Because we are providing solutions to the people in the communities, in the villages, and what they need are contextualized local solutions. I talked about having the finance institutions coming in as well to tailor-make approach and grant and concession loans. And this is not something that can be done without partnerships and collaboration with government, NGOs, international organizations, and even what we call CBAs or community-based organizations. So those are the things we need to prepare for. Just getting the funding is not the end to the problem, it's the beginning to the solutions that we are looking for.
So how can clean cooking solutions be made more affordable for African households?
That's a good question. And at System we've been in this industry for over 12 years now. And some of these things we've learned because of the work we've done, the experience, and some we've learned basically from market behavior. To make clean cooking solutions affordable to African households, first and foremost, what we need is subsidies and financial incentives. You'll find that most organizations do not have financial vehicles that are tailored towards clean cooking, and in most cases, the organizations offering the solutions are the ones who have to get into the financing piece of the end user. So it would be good to have subsidies and financial incentives to the end user, so that is affordable to the lower income households. Banks, microfinance, and other financial institutions should also be able to extend loans tailored to clean cooking that are different from the common loans or financing solutions that are available in the market. I spoke about local adoption of contextualization. So make it more affordable it would be good to promote local production, and if this is driven with subsidies that could be given to manufacturing companies that are specifically doing local production, it would lower the cost, and this can be affordable now to the household.
When we return, we get analysts' perspective on Namibia's Orange Basin discoveries.
We are done dreaming of an industrialized Africa. No more enduring long journeys in darkness. No more imagining life without constant power. We are done. We are done. Done tolerating 24 hours without power, load shedding, blackouts, and power cuts. Enough. Imagine a life where our abundant natural resources can't power a generation. We can't cope with that reality. 600 million Africans still lack access to power. We have the solution. It's time to turn imagination into action. African Energy Week 2024 is the platform to implement change, sign deals, and take decisive action. And implement. Join us. Invest in African energies. Energy growth through an enabling environment, and be part of the movement that brings hope to millions across the continent. It's not just about power. It's about empowering lives and giving African hope. Be there to witness the transformation. African Energy Week 2024, where imagination becomes reality. Secure your seat now. Don't miss out on African Energy Week 2024. Visit our website and buy your tickets today. Let's light up Africa and create a brighter future together.
At the time you need to build that project. Sign, baby, sign.
This is Energy Frontiers. The Republic of Namibia has seen significant economic growth resulting from recent oil discoveries by major energy heavyweights and multi-billion-dollar returns on deep-water projects expected in the next 6 years. David Thompson is the Vice President for Sub-Saharan Africa at Welligence Energy Analytics, and he speaks to me about how much potential the Namibia Orange Basin holds and how the country is working with partners to secure a sustainable energy future.
Well, we're very, very positive. I suppose I should say it's still early days and we need to see more drilling. But based on what we've seen so far with the discoveries you were alluding to, the Total discoveries, the Shell discoveries, and obviously Galp's discovery, we're confident there's going to be a lot more oil and gas discovered. To give you an idea, the discoveries made by those three companies at the moment, we think probably 3 to 3.5 billion barrels of oil recoverable. And there's going to be upside there. We're being quite conservative, but we think what's been discovered so far is of that magnitude. And going forward, there's billions of barrels more would be our expectation, both partly on from those companies, but also there's a big basin and there's other companies that will explore.
That's some news out there on Namibia. All eyes have been on Namibia for some time, since 2022 when those oil rigs were discovered. Now, how much industry interest are you seeing in the prospects of the Orange Basin?
Yeah, I mean, as you'd imagine, very, very, there's a lot of interest. Only certain companies, because it's very, very deep water. So it's technologically very challenging to explore there, and then obviously develop if success is found. So only really the technically very accomplished and very financially strong companies. So we're talking the majors, ExxonMobil, Equinor, Shell, Total. Those two are already there. Chevron has got a position. So those sort of companies. Some other bigger ones, Petrobras potentially, we think it will be looking to maybe get involved in Namibia. Interestingly, it's already historically it has been in Namibia. And there's another couple of wild cards, something like maybe Woodside. It has got a position there. It might look to increase its position. So in answer to your question, there's a lot of industry interest from those sort of caliber of companies. Orange Basin is well, as you say, it's very hot, and there's a lot of oil there. It seems almost definite that the more oil and gas is going to be discovered. So yes, the industry is looking at it very, very closely.
Now, while all of these opportunities abound in Namibia, I know that there are probably challenges. So what do you see in terms of challenges that Namibia faces in securing investment for these huge discoveries?
I think the challenges, well, to be honest, I mean, the number one challenge is there oil and gas there? And that's a big tick. There's and it's big oil and it's big gas. So I think so that challenge is probably taken care of. The industry knows and Namibia knows that it's sitting on a lot of oil and gas. So I don't think it's going to really struggle to attract investment. What it has to make sure, though, is to keep that investment, to keep the companies that are already there actively drilling, actively developing, So they've got to work closely with those companies. They've got to be pragmatic. They've got to, there's a lot of potential hurdles in terms of some of the fields. They might conceivably go across different blocks, so there might be unitization agreements that have to be worked upon. Namibia in general, it's got no hydrocarbon history. It's not a producing nation. So it's going to have to get on the front foot, be pragmatic with the regulation. It's going to work with these companies. Crucially, what these companies always look for is fiscal stability. Now, there's been no indication whatsoever that NAMCOR is going to change any of its existing contracts. Going forward, the way these things work, such as the level of interest, and now that there's investors really wanting to come to Namibia, they're likely going to be tightening the fiscals to give a bigger take to the government. That's fine. That's kind of industry standard. But what they have to make sure is they don't change anything that they've already signed. They don't they don't muck around with the fiscals that companies have already agreed upon. And going forward, if they do change it, they make it transparent. They know companies know what they're going to be signing up to, and that will be honored. The other issue as well is Namibia's never had this level of activity, both what's going on at the moment and then the likely development of these finds. So service sector, being able broadly just to get that level of equipment in and out of Namibia, so it can work offshore. So there's a lot of supply chain issues there that it'll have to work upon. So there's a lot of potential issues, but I would definitely say the indication so far is that the national oil company NAMCOR in Namibia and the Namibian regulators, they get it. They understand they have to work with the industry. They have to learn quickly. They have to be pragmatic. And so far, so good. So yeah, a few of the potential issues and how they might best deal with them.
The African Energy Chamber is set to host a Nigerian Energy Roadshow on June 25 for an investment and deal-making reception to showcase Nigeria's solar, wind, oil and gas resources. The Lagos event comes ahead of the African Energy Week, scheduled for November 4 to 8 in Cape Town, South Africa. To attend the Nigerian Roadshow, visit and register at the African Energy Chamber's website at www.aecweek.com. Now, let me introduce you to my new daily podcast, The Energy News Now, starting July the 1st. The Energy News Now brings you the latest news and information from across Africa and around the world. To listen to the daily audio podcast, connect with Frontier Africa Reports on YouTube and website, as well as across all the platforms indicated on your screen right now. The podcast is free for you. And that's the package of Energy Frontier for you at this time. I appreciate you making the time to watch the show at all times. Remember to follow the weekly show on Frontier Africa Reports website, like all the video editions that we publish, send in your comments, and do a free subscription to our YouTube. Kindly follow us as well across all our social media handles as indicated on the screen. I am Justina Okechukwu. I'll see you soon.